Okay, this video is to show how to cut out your apron project. You're going to need to check that you have two pieces. You need a pocket that you'll cut out second, but first you'll be cutting out the apron pattern itself, and you'll notice that it says fold, and so it needs to be placed on a fold of fabric so that you're actually cutting out just a half, but when you open it up you'll have a whole apron. So be very careful that the fold line matches the folded edge of your fabric. Don't put it over on the selvage edge of your fabric where it's open, or you won't have the right piece. So to save fabric, we're going to put a new fold in the fabric so that we can have a wider piece that will save your fabric. So what we're going to do is switch the fold line. So I'm going to just take this fabric and fold it over like this. And you can see that somebody's used this fabric before and done the same thing, so we know immediately where the new fold goes. And then lay it out like this. And then just make sure that you have the same. In this patterned fabric, you can see the stripe is the same all the way down, so that makes it easy. But if you don't have a pattern in your fabric, you need to check that the distance from the two salvages is the same. So take the measuring tape or tape measure out of your toolbox and measure at the top of where you want your apron to be. Let's see, let's put it like this, and the bottom. And so let's check the measurements. Here we have from the selvage edge to the other selvage edge is 42.3 centimeters. So when we come down here, we want to try and make sure that we have the same distance at the bottom of where your apron is. And I'm short, so I only have 40 centimeters here. So we need this one to be a little bit wider. Let's pull that open a little bit more. Measure it one more time, 42.3, and then pull it to right there to 0. Okay, and then make sure to smooth your fabric so that you know you have it laid carefully on there. And then put the fold line, and it's okay to do it upside down, but put this right up to the edge of the fabric. And as you pin it, you want to be sure to, see, that's a straight cut, so I can just put this right up to that edge. I'm going to put diagonal pins in the corners, and I make sure that the pin head does not stick off the edge of the fabric or the paper. And then put another diagonal pin in each corner. You should start actually with one end and then just make sure that both the pattern and the fabric are smooth all the way down. And keep certain that the edge of the paper goes right along the folded edge of the fabric. Don't let it go in like this, and don't let it come off the side. Otherwise you'll have the wrong size apron. Okay, and then I'm going to, again, at the corner, put a diagonal pin. Put straight pins in the middle. Not straight, perpendicular. And then diagonal. And I'm basically putting pins about the span of your hand from thumb to your pinky finger. And sometimes it's a little tricky to get the pin through, so you may need to lift up the fabric a little bit, but basically push straight through the fabric and then lift it up a little bit, and just make sure that the pin head is not off the edge of the fabric. And here's a diagonal pin at this corner. And then maybe one more perpendicular pin right here in the middle. When you're done pinning your pattern and you think you're ready to cut, please call pattern check and ask me to come and look at it visually. When you're cutting, please take and put your 4 fingers through the large hole of your shears and your thumb through the small hole. If you're right-handed, start at the cutting where the pattern is on your right and the spare fabric is on your left. And you want to be careful not to cut the paper. You're cutting just through the fabric, but you're cutting right below the paper, beside the paper. So take long, large strokes And with your left hand, hold the fabric that you've just cut along, and it comes off easier that way. When you come up to the next corner, the next line is a curved line, but it helps if you just kind of pull the fabric out as you get done. And on this curved line, it's a little bit tricky. Some students have had a hard time with this part, but be careful not to cut the paper. And this time you're just gradually curving the scissors to the left, but you want to be careful not to let the shears get at an angle. They should still be perpendicular to the table as you're cutting. Okay, and once you have that done, before you take the pattern off and put it back in your pattern envelope, you need to take your marking chalk out of your toolbox next. And at the 36 centimeter mark that's on the pattern, here it's on the bottom side, I'm going to make a small mark here with my marking chalk at that 36 centimeter line to show where the center of the pocket is going to be placed. So that's very important to mark that before you take your pattern off. Then you can take the pins out and fold up your pattern and put it back in the pattern Ziploc bag. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to cut the pocket. And with the remaining fabric, let's find, you need to make sure that your pocket goes, let's see, actually with this one, it's going to be interesting because of the design. So let's see if we can match the design here. Okay, the center of the pocket, we really want to be, here's the top of the pocket. And so the design on here, let's see, is going to fit right there. Let's see if we can match that. Okay, so if we have this center line here matching, let's flip this over. Okay, we have this space here that we want to get our pocket out of, but we want the center edge to be into right here in this space here. So we're going to this part right here. So it's actually wasting a little bit of fabric, but it will help make your pocket match. If you have a plain fabric, you don't have to take the time to match the fabric. But when you have a design that you want to match, then you're going to take the time to, this is called fussy cutting, when you arrange it this way. Normally, if you had a plain fabric, you would want to just put it up into the top corner and not waste extra fabric. But in this case, because we're trying to make this pocket go right here, right there is where we're going to place it. So then with your pocket as well, you need to put 4 diagonal pins in the corners. And again, doing the same thing, going through the paper, through the fabric, and being sure to make sure that the pin head doesn't go off the edge. Then do that in each of the 4 corners. And then let's put 2 perpendicular pins in the middle, like that. And again, once you've finished pinning it on, call pattern check and have the teacher visually check it before you start cutting. This looks good. So we'll take the shears, and again, using the pattern on your right side and the fabric on the left, cut straight along with perpendicular positioning of the shears and cut straight along the edge of the pocket. And there isn't anything to mark on the pocket, so you can take the pins out and put them back in the pincushion. And please double check that your pattern pieces all have the same number, that you're putting your own pattern pieces back into your pattern envelope. The next step that we need to do is to go over and work on the pocket preparations.